Nobody saw this coming. The Giants just shocked the entire NFL by sending Dexter Lawrence to the Bengals for a top 10 pick. One of the league's most dominant defensive forces is gone overnight, and now the draft board is spiraling out of control in ways no one expected at all. But the real story behind this move is only just beginning now. The moment Dexter Lawrence was shipped out, the Giants didn't just lose a player, they lost the core of their entire defensive identity. This wasn't a rotational piece or a depth move being replaced. This was the engine of their interior defense, gone in an instant, and the timing makes it even more chaotic. Lawrence wasn't just productive, he was the type of defensive tackle offenses had to build entire game plans around. Double teams, shifted protections, altered run concepts, all of it was standard whenever he lined up. Now, that constant pressure point in the middle of the field is suddenly missing, and that changes everything about how the Giants will be attacked next season. And here, where it gets even more complicated, this trade didn't happen in a vacuum. It happens right before the draft, meaning the Giants are now forced into a high-pressure identity rebuild on the fly. They can't slowly replace Lawrence over time, they have to decide immediately what kind of team they're becoming. Are they doubling down on defense and trying to patch the hole with another elite defensive prospect? Or are they shifting direction entirely and leaning into offense with their premium draft capital? Because right now, both paths are on the table and neither comes with a safety net. Inside league circles, there's already confusion about what the Giants are planning at pick 5 and pick 10. Some believe they'll stay aggressive defensively, stacking talent like Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs to try and recreate a new defensive backbone. Others think this trade signals a pivot toward offense, maybe targeting a weapon like Jordan Tyson or reinforcing the offensive line. But the uncomfortable truth is this: losing Lawrence doesn't just weaken one position group, it exposes how quickly the Giants' defensive foundation can shift from elite to uncertain. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes their draft decisions now feel unpredictable, aggressive, and potentially franchise-defining in a way nobody saw coming just 24 hours ago. But what happens at pick 10 is where this entire story takes an even bigger turn. Pick number 10 suddenly isn't just another selection anymore, it's the pressure point of the entire first round. The moment the Giants acquired that pick in the Dexter Lawrence deal, everything around it started shifting like dominoes ready to fall in multiple directions at once. Because now, every single team inside the top 10 has to react to what the Giants do here. And that's what makes this so dangerous. One decision at pick 10 doesn't just affect New York, it rewrites who is available for everyone behind them, including the Cowboys watching closely from the outside. The biggest tension inside the Giants building right now is simple. Do they double down on defense after losing a cornerstone like Lawrence, or do they pivot and attack offense while they have rare draft capital flexibility? That decision alone could reshape multiple franchise paths. And the names being floated around make it even more unpredictable. Defensive prospects like Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs represent the idea of rebuilding the defense immediately, almost trying to recreate a new identity in one draft. But then you've got offensive buzz building around Jordan Tyson, a name insiders are already starting to circle as a potential surprise pick at 10. That's where things get chaotic, because if the Giants go defense at 5 and 10, they're essentially locking in a defensive-heavy rebuild strategy that nobody really expected before this trade. But if they go offense at 10, suddenly elite defenders start sliding further down the board than anyone projected. And that's where the ripple effect begins. Every team picking after them, Saints, Commanders, Cardinals, Dolphins, even the Chiefs, now has to adjust on the fly. One unexpected Giants pick can push top defensive talent directly into the Cowboys' range or completely erase their targets before they're even on the clock. So pick 10 isn't just important anymore. It's the trigger point that decides whether the Cowboys walk into draft night with options or watch their board collapse in real time. And what the insiders are saying about this pick makes the situation even more unpredictable. This is where the Dexter Lawrence trade stops being just a Giants story and starts becoming a full-blown Cowboys problem. Because the moment New York changed direction, Dallas suddenly found itself sitting in the middle of a draft storm they didn't even create, but absolutely have to survive. Every move the Giants make at pick 5 and pick 10 now directly reshapes what's possible when the Cowboys are finally on the clock. And the tension is simple. Dallas is hunting elite defensive talent. That's the priority. But those players, the difference makers like Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Monser Delane, even pass-rushing upside options, are all sitting in a fragile range where one unexpected pick can completely change their availability. If the Giants decide to go offense at 10, that sounds good for Dallas at first glance. It pushes defensive talent down the board, it keeps more elite defenders alive deeper into the first round. Suddenly, the Cowboys might actually have options instead of scrambling. But there's the flip side, and it's dangerous. If the Giants go defense at both 5 and 10, they're essentially vacuuming up 2 premium defensive prospects in the exact range Dallas is watching. That doesn't just reduce options, it compresses the entire board. And when the board compresses, teams behind them start panicking and jumping ahead. Now add in the ripple effect. Saints, Commanders, Cardinals, Dolphins, even the Chiefs, all of them are sitting in that same decision zone. One aggressive move, one surprise pick, one trade up, and suddenly the Cowboys' preferred targets start disappearing in real time. This is why the Dexter Lawrence trade matters so much to Dallas. It didn't just shift one roster, it destabilized the entire top 10 ecosystem right before draft night. And the Cowboys, they're not in control of any of it. They're just reacting, watching, waiting for the first domino to fall. Because once it does, everything they've planned for could either open up perfectly or collapse instantly. And the worst part is, the noise around this draft might be hiding something even bigger. Right now, the most dangerous part of this entire situation isn't the trade itself, it's the noise surrounding it. Because every NFL draft cycle hits this exact point where information stops being clean and starts becoming weaponized. And with the Dexter Lawrence deal shaking up the board, that noise has gone into overdrive. Insiders are throwing out names constantly: Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Jordan Tyson, Monser Delane, but the problem is none of it lines up in a clear, consistent direction. One report says defense, another hints offense, another suggests a trade-down scenario, and another completely contradicts everything that came before it. This is where front offices start playing games. Teams don't just evaluate players at this stage, they evaluate each other. Every leak, every workout mention, every linked to a report can be strategic misinformation designed to make another franchise hesitate or overthink their board. And the Giants are suddenly one of the most unpredictable teams in that environment. Why? Because they now hold pick 10 after moving Dexter Lawrence, a franchise-altering defensive piece, which immediately makes everyone question their real intentions. Are they replacing him with another defensive cornerstone, or was that trade the signal of a broader shift toward offense? That uncertainty is exactly what creates chaos. Jordan Tyson's name popping up repeatedly doesn't necessarily mean he's the pick, but it does force teams like the Cowboys to consider a scenario where offensive players start going earlier than expected. And when that happens, defensive prospects don't just slide, they get reshuffled across the entire board. Meanwhile, teams like the Saints, Chiefs, Dolphins, and Commanders are all operating under the same fog of uncertainty. One false read, one misinterpreted leak, and suddenly someone trades up or reaches for a player no one saw coming. And that's the real danger here. Because by the time the truth actually surfaces on draft night, it might already be too late for teams like Dallas to adjust cleanly. What looks like noise on the surface could actually be the signal that decides who falls, who rises, and who disappears entirely. But when you strip away all the rumors, the real question becomes even more important. Now we get to the question that's splitting opinions across the entire league. Was this Dexter Lawrence trade actually a smart move for the Giants, or did they just gamble away one of their most important defensive pillars for draft hope? On the surface, losing a player like Lawrence looks like a massive step backward. He wasn't just a starter, he was a dominant interior force, someone who changed how offenses operated every single week. That kind of presence doesn't get replaced easily, and definitely not overnight. So naturally, the immediate reaction is concern. Because when you trade away a cornerstone defender like that, you're not just losing production, you're losing identity, leadership, and stability in the trenches. And for a defense already trying to find consistency, that's a dangerous void to create right before a draft. But here where the argument flips. The return, the number 10 overall pick, gives the Giants something they didn't have before: flexibility at the exact moment they needed it most. Instead of being locked into one direction, they now control a premium draft asset in a class where top-tier talent is clustered tightly at the top. That means they can pivot, they can rebuild, they can retool, or they can go aggressive and try to replace multiple impact roles in one draft cycle. And that's where the debate gets interesting. If the Giants nail these picks, especially at 5 and 10, this trade starts to look like a long-term chess move. They could potentially walk away with multiple foundational players instead of relying on a single defensive superstar. But if they miss, if the picks don't hit, then this becomes the kind of move that gets questioned for years, the moment they traded away a proven elite defender for uncertainty. Around the league, there's also respect for the Bengals here. They didn't hesitate to go after a win-now piece, even if it meant paying a premium. That alone signals how aggressive this trade really was from both sides. So the truth is, this isn't a clean win or loss yet. It's a swing decision, and the outcome won't be known until those draft picks either turn into stars or turn into regret. And what happens next in the final stretch before the draft could decide everything? Now everything comes down to timing. Because once this Dexter Lawrence trade drops right before the draft, the entire NFL doesn't just adjust, it starts reacting in real time. And that's where things get dangerous for teams like the Cowboys, because the board they thought they understood is no longer stable. The first 5 picks are now everything, not just important, decisive. One surprise selection at the top can completely reshape how the rest of the first round unfolds. If a team unexpectedly leans defense early, the ripple effect pushes offensive talent down. If someone reaches for a quarterback or offensive weapon, elite defenders suddenly start sliding into spots nobody predicted. And that's exactly what makes this moment so volatile. The Giants now sit in the middle of it all with pick 5 and pick 10, meaning they have the power to trigger multiple chain reactions. If they go defense twice, they could wipe out 2 premium defensive prospects from the board entirely. If they split offense and defense, they could unlock a wave of value that reshapes the entire middle of the first round. And every single team behind them is watching. Saints, Cardinals, Commanders, Dolphins, Chiefs, all of them are now in a position where one unexpected Giants pick forces them to either adjust or panic. That's how reaches happen, that's how trades get triggered, that's how draft night chaos starts. For the Cowboys, this is where hope and frustration collide. Because in one version of this timeline, defensive stars like Caleb Downs, Monsieur Delane, Sonny Styles, or other elite prospects slide right into their range. In another version, those same players disappear within the first 10 picks and Dallas is left reacting instead of choosing. And the worst part, no one knows which version is coming. That's why this final stretch before draft night matters more than anything else. Not the mock drafts, not the rumors, not the speculation. Just the actual decisions being made behind closed doors. Because once the first pick hits the board, everything after it becomes unstoppable. And when that first domino falls, the entire draft could instantly flip upside down.